Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about something quite exciting, which is five new books that are going to be coming out in 2024. Now their publication dates vary, so do their genres, but I came across these books and I just got so excited because some of them sound so, well, all of them actually, which is why I chose them and I want to read them. But they sound so interesting to me, and I just wanted to talk about them and introduce them, see what you guys think. You can let me know in the comments below your thoughts. I always get so excited when new books are coming out, especially when there are new translations of books, because sometimes, personally, I don't want to always read things in English, but sometimes it's nice to see things from other countries being translated into English so that others can read them. I know sometimes I've read some things in French, for example, where they're not available in English, and I just so badly want to talk about it with my wife. But unfortunately, she does not speak the language, so we can't really share the experience. I can tell her about the book, of course, but it's different when you buddy read with someone. Anyways, I don't know why I went on that tangent, but that's okay. If you learn anything from my channel, you will know that I'm quite tangential. Moving forward, the first book that I actually want to talk about is this book that is called Snow Globe. And it's going to be published in February 27th, 2024, by So Young Park, and the translator is Jungmin Lee Comfort. What a name! That's such an interesting name. I love that. And this book was originally published in Korean, I believe, but it is now being translated into the English language as of next year. And this book sounds so interesting. It's kind of unique for me because it is young adult, and I don't typically go for young adult literature. But Goodreads does say it's also a science fiction dystopia, and I love dystopias. And young adult literature has a lot of dystopias, really. So, we are multitudes. What can I say? Anyway, so let's see here. Currently, it has a 3.82 out of a 5-star rating. And that's out of 49 ratings, 29 reviews. Let's check out its blurb. It is being compared to The Hunger Games and Squid Game. So, that's interesting already. But let's read what it actually says. So, in a world of constant winter, only the citizens of the climate-controlled city of Snow Globe can escape the bitter cold. But this perfect society is hiding dark and dangerous secrets within its frozen heart. Ooh. A groundbreaking Korean novel translated into English for the first time. Enclosed under a vast dome, Snow Globe is the last place on Earth that's warm. Outside Snow Globe is a frozen wasteland, and every day citizens face the icy world to get to their jobs at the power plant, where they produce the energy Snow Globe needs. Their only solace comes in the form of 24-hour television programming streamed directly from the domed city. The residents of Snow Globe have fame, fortune, and above all, safety from the desolation outside their walls. In exchange, their lives are broadcast to the less fortunate outside, who watch eagerly, hoping for the chance to one day become actors themselves. Chobam lives for the first time. She spends... What? Chobam lives for the time. Oh, okay, sorry. Chobam lives for the time she spends watching the shows produced inside Snow Globe. Her favorite? Go Around, starring Go Harry, Snow Globe's biggest star. And, it turns out, the key to getting Chobam her dream life. Because Harry is dead, and Chobam has been chosen to take her place. Only life inside Snow Globe is nothing like what you see on television. Reality is a lie, and truth seems to be forever out of reach. I just think it sounds so cool, so interesting, and the concept of a snow globe. First of all, I love snow globes. I love Christmas. So the fact that there is this wintry book, and it comes out in February, which is a great wintry time. It's one of the coldest months of the year here in Canada. I think it's going to be really exciting to explore and read. And the fact also that Snow Globe is kind of this television program in addition to this elite society, and everybody can watch you, and the privilege that you receive has its own price. It's very much speaking to celebrity in the real world, and I think that is something that could be quite fascinating to dive into. It seems like perhaps this could be a little speculative. It could be a little literary, depending on how it's written. So I am really looking forward to checking out this book when it comes out. The next one here, this one is so cool sounding. This one is called The Cemetery of Untold Stories by Julia Alvarez. So far it has 3.81 stars out of 5 on Goodreads with 42 ratings and 30 reviews. The genres that it's listed under are fiction, magical realism, fantasy, adult fiction, which I'm quite happy to see, and literary fiction. So this one's more of a literary fiction, magical realism type book, which are probably my most favorite. This one sounds so cool. Let's get into it. Okay. Alma Cruz, the celebrated writer at the heart of the Cemetery of Untold Stories, doesn't want to end up like her friend, a novelist who fought so long and hard to finish a book that it threatened her sanity. So when Alma inherits a small plot of land in the Dominican Republic, her homeland, she has the beautiful idea of turning it into a place to bury her untold stories. Literally. She creates a graveyard for the manuscript drafts and revisions, and the characters whose lives she tried and failed to bring to life, and who still haunt her. Alma wants her characters to rest in peace, but they have other ideas, and the cemetery becomes a mysterious sanctuary for their true narratives. This is so cool. Philomena, a local woman hired as the groundskeeper, becomes a sympathetic listener as Alma's characters unspool their secret tales. Among Bienvenida, the abandoned second wife of dictator Rafael Trujillo, consigned to oblivion by history, and Manuel Cruz, a doctor who fought in the Dominican underground and escaped to the United States. The characters defy the rules of reality, and they talk back to her and talk to one another behind her back, rewriting and revising themselves. The Cemetery of Untold Stories, whose stories get to be told, and who's buried. Finally, Alma finds the meaning she and her characters yearn for in the everlasting vitality of stories. This storyline sounds so cool to me. The idea that a writer gives up on their stories, even though they think about them constantly, and they put them in a cemetery literally in order to move on and cope with their failures. And then all of a sudden they become alive and they start editing themselves and creating their own stories. That's so fascinating to me. As someone who loves writing, I totally understand that sentiment of having those characters kind of live out in your mind, and bringing them to life with your fingertips when you're typing. I don't know, it just sounds so fun and so cool. Also, the fact that there seemed to be some Hispanic background to this particular book, I find it an interesting choice that the main character's name is Alma, which means soul or spirit in Spanish, because that definitely speaks to the actual storyline that's happening here. And I also kind of wonder, is this storyline going to be kind of gothic, or is it going to be more lighthearted? That should be interesting to see too. But anyways, this book, it doesn't come out until April 2nd next year, so that's unfortunate. Because I think this is one of the books that I want to read most, even more so than Snow Globe and the others I've chosen. But man, okay, let's go to the next one. This one has a beautiful cover. This one is called Time's Mouth by Eden Lepucki. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that name. It has 3.86 stars out of 5. With 885 ratings and 171 reviews. So this one has a lot more than the other two. The genres that this one is listed under, there are quite a few. Fantasy, time travel, I love a good time traveling book. Science fiction, historical fiction, magical realism, adult literature. Without much further ado, let's check out the blurb here. Ursa possesses a very special gift. She can travel through memory and revisit her past. After she flees her hometown for the counterculture glory of 1950s California, the intoxicating potential of her unique ability eventually draws a group of women into her orbit and into a ramshackle Victorian mansion in the woods outside Santa Cruz. Yet Ursa's powers come with a cost. Soon, this cultish community of sisterhood takes an ominous turn, prompting her son, Ray, and his pregnant lover, Cherry, to flee their home for Los Angeles and reinvent themselves far from Ursa's insidious influence. Oh, so she's not good. But escaping their past won't be so easy. A series of mysterious events forces Cherry to abandon their baby, leaving Ray to raise Opal alone. Now a teenager, and still heartbroken over the abandonment of the mother she never knew, Opal must journey into her own past to reveal the generations of secrets that gave rise to the shimmering source of her family's painful legacy. From the forests of Santa Cruz to the 1980s glam of Melrose Avenue to a solitary mansion among the oil derricks off the La Cienega Boulevard and brimming with the double-edged capacity of memory to both heal and harm, Time's Mouth is a poignant and evocative excavation of the bonds that bind families together. Now, doesn't that sound so cool? Oh my goodness, that sounds so interesting. This also kind of reminds me of the book Where the Heart Is by Billy Letts. Now, that one's more domestic fiction, but you might have seen the movie too. I think it has Natalie Portman in it. Mind you, in my opinion, I think the movie was not good, but the book was excellent, and it is excellent. And it's basically about this pregnant teenager who ends up becoming homeless after her boyfriend dumps her, and she lives in a Walmart and eventually gives birth in a Walmart, and she, finds this chosen family from this kind of motley crew of individuals. This kind of reminds me of that for a couple reasons. One, the names are quite unique, like Ursa and Cherry, and Opal. Opal, I know, is an older name. It's not as popular anymore, but I would put it in that category of more unusual names for modern times. And same with Where the Heart Is. That one has more unusual names too. Like, I remember there's this nun in it called Sister Husband. And she had blue hair or something. She was quite the character. So that is one reason why it reminds me of it. Another reason is the whole fact that Opal ends up being raised alone by Ray, her dad, just getting dumped by Cherry. This also kind of reminds me a little bit of Where the Heart Is. This is a little bit different, of course, but it kind of has those same vibes, I would say, of reality, and despite the fantasy elements that are in the story. But man, this one sounds really good. I would say this one's probably a close second that I want to read. Next book, Expiration Dates by Rebecca Searle, or Surly. Not sure how to pronounce her name, I'm sorry. This one is 3.9 out of 5 stars, pretty good rating. It has over 1,014 ratings already and 657 reviews. Man, I want to get on this train. I want to read these books before they get published. Where are my ARCs? That's okay. I don't have a lot of time for reading advanced reader copies at the moment, but I am quite excited to read these. This one is also a romance, so this one's a little bit different from the other two. But it is also magical realism, contemporary fiction. So it might have some more domestic elements. We'll see. I find a lot of contemporary fiction has a lot of, domestic fictional elements, but it may not. But this one is definitely different in that there's more romance as the center of the story. Okay, speaking of the story, let's read what the story is about. Daphne Bell believes the universe has a plan for her. Every time she meets a new man, she receives a slip of paper with his name and a number on it, the exact amount of time that they will be together. The papers told her she'd spend 3 days with Martin in Paris, 5 weeks with Noah in San Francisco, and 3 months with Hugo, her ex-boyfriend turned best friend. Daphne has been receiving the numbered papers for over 20 years, always wondering when there might be one without an expiration. Finally, the night of a blind date at her favorite Los Angeles restaurant, there's only a Jake. But as Jake and Daphne's story unfolds, Daphne finds herself doubting the paper's prediction and wrestling with what it means to be both committed and truthful. Because Daphne knows things Jake doesn't, information that, if he found out, would break his heart. Told with her signature warmth and insight into matters of the heart, Rebecca Surley has finally set her sights on romantic love. The result is a gripping, emotional, passionate, and, yes, heartbreaking novel about what it means to be single, what it means to find love, and ultimately how we define each of them for ourselves. Ooh. Okay, so this one sounds pretty good, and it's a shorter book, which I definitely prefer. I'm trying to get over that big book fear, but it's hard. This one's 272 pages, at least for this edition that I'm looking at. And this sounds really good. This kind of reminds me of Una Out of Order for some reason. It's got that magical realism element. Obviously, this one does not have time travel like Una Out of Order has, but it's got kind of a similar vibe to it. It also kind of reminds me a little bit, just a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit, of The Midnight Library, in that the stories are completely different. But in The Midnight Library, no, I'm not really revealing any spoilers, the main character looks at alternate decisions that could have been made in her life and how that would have affected her life. And this kind of gives me the same sort of impression where she doesn't have alternate decisions, but she knows what her decisions will look like in terms of duration of time, and therefore she knows she'll be single afterwards, so she kind of knows the result in a way. That kind of small aspect reminds me of The Midnight Library. I am quite interested to read why she's getting these letters or how she's getting these letters. That might not even be revealed. When it comes to magical realism, it's not always explained, it just kind of is. And I kind of like that element sometimes. So I'm curious to see how this is written, and I hope it is written well because this sounds really interesting. It comes out March 5th, so this one is going to come out sooner than the last one. This one is very different for me. This one is fantasy. It's also young adult. I don't typically like fantasy, but this one I'm going to make an exception for, I think, because it involves mermaids. And I don't know, the last few months I've really gotten into mermaids. It's that weird. I'm not into merfolk or anything. I don't like watching those kind of videos on YouTube or Instagram or anything. But I do find the literary use of mermaids as a symbol really interesting. They can represent so much in a story. It also says it is a high fantasy, which I never read, and it's mythology related to Asian literature. So that's kind of cool. I've not read too much Asian literature. I've read some, because growing up in Canada, in my experience, you naturally read Asian literature in school. I'm excited to see what aspects of Asia this brings. This one is called Fathom Folk. Great name. Love that name. It's written by Eliza Chan, and it looks like this is going to be the first in a series called Drowned World. Very cool. That's 3.73 stars out of 5 with 59 ratings and 45 reviews. Let's see what it's about. From one of fantasy's most exciting new voices, Eliza Chan comes a modern, myth-inflected story of revolution and magic set against the glittering, semi-submerged city of Tiankawi, perfect for fans of Jade City and the Bone Shard Daughter. I have not read either of those books, unfortunately. Welcome to Tiankawi, shining pearl of human civilization and a safe haven for those fleeing civil unrest. Or, at least, that's how it first appears. Dystopia? But in the semi-flooded city, humans are, quite literally, on peering down from skyscrapers and aerial walkways on the Fathom Folk, sirens, sea witches, kelpies, and kappas, who live in the polluted waters below. Already this sounds like some sort of speculative fiction to me, to do with classism. This sounds great. For half siren, Myra, okay, so maybe we have some racism potentially here. Promotion to captain of the border guard means an opportunity to reform. At last, she has the ear of the city council and a chance to lift the repressive laws that restrict Fathom Folk at every turn. But if earning the trust and respect of her human colleagues wasn't hard enough, everything Myra has worked towards is put in jeopardy when a water dragon is exiled to the city. My mind first thinks, what will they represent? New arrival Nami is an aristocratic water dragon with an opinion on everything, frustrated by the lack of progress from Myra's softly approach in gaining equality. Nami knows her lot in with an anti-human extremist group, leaving Myra to find the headstrong youth before she makes everything worse. And pulling strings behind everything is Cordelia, a second-generation sea witch determined to do what she must to survive and see her family flourish, even if it means climbing over the bodies of her competitors. Oh my. Her political game-playing and underground connections could disrupt everything Nami and Myra are fighting for. When the extremists sabotage the annual boat race, violence erupts, as does the clampdown on Fathom folk rights. Even Nami realizes her new friends are not what they both seem. Both she and Myra must decide if the cost of change is worth it, or if Tiankawi should be left to drown. Wow, that sounds so fascinating to me. Definitely speculative fiction. How could this not be speculative fiction? This sounds like Western society to me. It could also be Eastern society. It is Asia-inspired in terms of its background. That sounds really cool to me. Like I said, I love what mermaids can represent in literature, and it sounds like this is going to definitely represent something profound, something meaningful, and I'm excited to explore it and to venture forward with this book. All the books, really. Okay, before we go, let's take a look here. The Cemetery of Untold Stories by Julia Alvarez. That one I want to read first for sure. I'm most excited by The Cemetery of Untold Stories by Julia Alvarez, and then I would say Time's Mouth by Eden Lepucki, and then Fathom Folk by Eliza Chan, and then Snow Globe by So Young Park, and Expiration Dates by Rebecca Surley. Let me know what books you're most interested in, if any, in the comments below. You can list them off as the top priority to the fifth priority. Or if you have any other recommendations for books that are going to be published next year, also let me know. I'm always looking forward to adding more books to my, never-ending TBR. It is, I don't know if I should say, it's 938 books so far. I don't think I'll ever read all of them, but that's okay. It's just fun to look for them and find them and read about them. And then the special ones I will choose, I guess. Anyways, thanks so much for spending the time with me here today. I had a lot of fun talking about these books. I hope you enjoyed listening, and I look forward to speaking with you all next time. Until then, take care and bye for now.